know what's going on. All right. Hey, hi. I'm Heather and this is it's a plant-based party and we are having a party and it's just me right now. So we'll see if anybody else shows up to the party. I'm thinking I should probably hook up my microphone and just make sure that it's good to go, okay? And this is the second time we're doing the plant-based party, so you know what? This is a new thing and it's not every day that you get to party with yourself, but hey, that sounds a little weird, doesn't it? But we're gonna just party hardy, and you know what? This is gonna work out just fine. Maybe someone will show up. All right, I'm gonna try to get my microphone to work here, and then you guys can tell me if you can hear me. Where is it? Oh my god. Oh my god, what's going on here? Okay, hold on. Here we go. Here we go. All right. All right. I'm just going to assume that you guys, your default microphone has changed. Okay, let's just make sure that we don't have anybody in the audience. So you know what? All the stress is gone. See, this is the thing when you're starting new things in your business or in life, if you're going to be a content creator or whatever, you got to kind of roll with the punches. Can't get too freaked out about any of these things that could go wrong, because guess what? If you are doing things like lives and podcasting and all that kind of stuff, chances are things could definitely go wrong. It does. Talk to any podcaster and they will tell you that there's been times where they forgot to hit the record button. And here I am. I'm going live before I was supposed to go live because I hit a button thinking like, oh, I better test and see if it's got the right link and blah, blah, blah. And then before I knew it, I saw the window open up. Now, I guess I could have closed it, but what are you going to do? All right, let's get to this. Let's just have a party. All right, if friends show up, they show up. What is this? Okay, so it's a plant-based party. This is a new video podcast that I'm doing that I am trying to get I want to get people to be more plant-based oriented. So if you are a vegan, you're probably like, yes, I eat plants. Or maybe you're a junk food vegan and you eat a lot of like processed stuff, and you probably eat some salads once in a while or something. I don't know. Salads are not like going to be the way that you're going to get people to become vegan. I don't think so. I don't know. Unless it's summertime, I like something warm. I like soup. Let's talk about soup. All right. Well, it's starting to become summertime, right? Okay. So maybe soup is not the right topic, but I made a soup the other day and it made me start thinking about how delicious soup can be and how easy it can be. So if you've got just some random things in the house and you're like, I don't know what the heck I'm going to make. Well, one thing is you could do something possibly in the oven with it. I have this thing, it's called oven meals. And I just use parchment paper and cookie sheets, and I make all kinds of stuff just in the oven. And there's like no cleanup because you just throw the parchment paper away. And you've had a variety of vegetables, maybe some tofu or tempeh or something. And it was all done in the oven all at once. Very, very easy. That's one of my like go-to things because you can marinate things and get it all very flavorful before you toss it into the oven. And then it's just one device. Now, with things like soups can be great because you can combine things together and make one thing. Now, sometimes things don't taste so good like in chunks. So that's why I love using my immersion blender. So I don't have to pour the soup contents into like a Vitamix or something and blend them up while it's hot. That's, you know, um, instead you use this immersion blender and it goes into the soup like that, and you plug it into the wall, and a lot of them have like different attachments and stuff, and it works great, and it doesn't scrape up your bowl or anything, like, or your pot, your soup pot or anything. You can just go straight into the soup pot. Love it, love it, love it. If you find that your soups are like too thin, you can blend your stuff. I mentioned last week that I always use red lentils to help kind of thicken up the soup. and they kind of disintegrate, and they just are just a natural thickener. You can use things like cornstarch, although I would use organic cornstarch because corn products are heavily GMO'd, and so you want to find organic, non-GMO cornstarch. And you usually have to kind of look around for those. Those are not going to be like just readily available at your grocery store unless you're like going to like Whole Foods or something like that. Um, so, and then you can also use other things to thicken your soup. So if you are a gluten eater, you can use flour, but I wouldn't just pour it in. Like, use a little. What I do is I use a bowl, and I put in a little bit of flour or the cornstarch, and then put some of the hot liquid in from the soup, and just mix it around so that it kind of disintegrates, like it just like all blends together before you put in the soup. Because if you just try to put some kind of powder into the soup, it just chunks up. Just think about like if you were to make dumplings, like all the flour, it just clumps together. Same with tapioca starch. You can use that too to thicken a soup. But again, if you pour it in and the liquid's hot, you're gonna get like tapioca chunks in there. Doesn't work really well. No. So just make sure that you mix it up on the side. And I always do it with like some flavoring and stuff. And so that way, when I put it in, I can use a little spatula and make sure it goes all in and it thickens up the soup. Putting a thickener in a soup is something that a lot of people really need to put on their to-do list when they're making soup, because a thin soup, no, I'm sorry, but it can be a clear broth soup, but it's got to have a little bit of something to hold it together. Like if it's just like water, no, that doesn't work. No, no, no. So it's got to have something in there. Now, sometimes the other ingredients might add a little starchiness or something that just makes it so it's just not like runny. Yeah, you don't want runny soup. So one of my favorite things to do is just to take cookbooks and veganize recipes. So this is a cookbook that I think I've had around. I think I got this. This looks like a Costco purchase to me. And I think I got this. Oh, look at this $5.99 cookbook. You right there, $5.99. I think this is a Costco purchase. If not, it was probably like one of those Barnes and Noble like sale table kind of things. And I got this like way before I went vegan, so you're not going to find this for $5.99 anywhere. Now, this recipe book has tons of meat soups, which I'm obviously not going to make, but you can take some inspiration from these other things, these other recipes that contain meat, because what happens is it's got a flavor profile. So even if you don't have that meat in there, there's a combination of spices, and maybe it's an acid or a fat or some kind of combination of like different herbs and spices. Those things still will work together. You just will modify it in a different way. So if you're thinking of like, okay, Thai food has this particular type of flavor balance, or Italian food, or curry from like Jamaican curry, that has they're all very different. So you can apply those different types of flavor profiles to whatever you're making when you're cooking vegan food. It's one of the most exciting, fun things to do when you're cooking. So if you think about like, okay, you go in your refrigerator and you're like, what am I going to make? So this was the other day, my husband was saying, oh, his brother was coming over, and that meant he was going to come over for dinner. And I was like, oh, okay, I know I have a cauliflower head in the refrigerator. Okay, I could do something with that. I mentioned earlier about the red lentils, so I knew, okay, I could add those. I didn't have any potatoes. That sounded kind of interesting. I was like, okay, I've got mushrooms. Like, what else can I do with this? So I decided to take the cauliflower. I chopped it up into like random pieces, and then put some Jamaican curry on it, put it and some garlic, some a little bit of salt, put it in the oven. And I was like, okay, I'm just gonna get this kind of more caramelized, browned, and decide what else I'm gonna do. So then I found I had some green onions, put those in the pot, use the some seasoning, I use a lot of soup seasoning that I get from the Asian market. I make sure that it's doesn't have MSG and all that kind of stuff. And then I just made a broth out of that with the red lentils and put a little bit of soy sauce in there. And then I thought, okay, I'll put some coconut milk in as well, and then thicken it up with a little bit of cornstarch. It worked out perfectly. Then I took the cauliflower, threw it in the pot, blended it a little bit, and then added some sweet corn just to give it kind of some other texture in there. And it came out great. And I served it with, oh, I'm sorry, I put peanut butter in there. So it was a peanut butter coconut broth soup, organic peanut butter. So yeah, that made it actually really, really, really good. And if you can't eat peanuts, sorry, you could probably use some other kind of nut butter. But what we did was I topped it with, from Trader Joe's, they have these, oh, look, I'm putting my thumb at Trader Joe's. They have these peanuts that are like the chili garlic peanuts or something like that. They're already kind of pre-flavored, and sprinkle those on top of the soup as like a garnish, but also extra flavor. And then I had some of those onions that are like those fried onions that oftentimes, like at Thanksgiving, you put on top of your green beans. I use those. And so those were toppers on the soup as well. Came out so good. So you can just use what's in your refrigerator as inspiration. So if you're somebody that doesn't cook that often and you're like, I don't have a clue, I have no idea even where to start. If you have some kind of vegetable in your house and it's a fresh vegetable, or maybe even it's a frozen vegetable, and you're like, okay, I've got this, don't know what else to do with it. Okay, maybe a soup is your answer, because you can turn a soup is a meal, Jerry, right? Okay, so you can turn it into a soup. Soup is a meal. Maybe you get some crunchy bread, you can make some biscuits, or if you're not into that, maybe some crackers. Oh, it's always good to have some crackers, maybe made from like almond flour or something. They sell those at Costco. Anyways, so you could turn a vegetable into soup. Now, if you got potatoes, those work well. Frozen vegetables, just take whatever that vegetable is that you got in your house and Google it. Be like, vegan soup, put in the name of the vegetable, and I guess what, you're probably going to come up with some answers and things that maybe you hadn't thought about. But this also brings me to my point that you should always have some staples on hand in your pantry. So have some like canned like white beans, or have some canned chopped tomatoes, or things like that you can add to a soup. And if you don't like tomato-based soup, well, then what about miso? I always keep some miso in the refrigerator. Now, miso is made from soy, and it's a fermented soy product. Now, the idea of fermented to me is just disgusting, but it's not disgusting. Miso actually has a really good flavor. It's that umami flavor. It's not like fermented, like, I don't know. It's not a gross fermented. And tempeh is also like a fermentation process, and it's actually really good for you. Miso is like part of like the Ayurvedic, is that how you say it? And also oh god, what's macrobiotic? That's the one I'm thinking of. Macrobiotic. I think they eat that like every day, miso. The thing with miso is that you don't want it to boil, because then a lot of the greatness, whatever it does for your body, will be boiled out. So the idea is just to bring it just kind of just hot enough to dissolve it. So if you are going to boil your soup, or bring it up to a boil or almost a boil, put the miso in last, and that way you're not cooking off the good stuff. Again, you also use like that side bowl where you're putting in the thickener, put the miso in there, and just kind of get it all mixed together, and then just add that at the last second, so it's not cooking in there. Now, miso is something, if you go to say you go to a Japanese restaurant, you're like, oh, I want to have a bowl of miso may not be vegan. So at a restaurant, miso, they oftentimes put like fish sauce in there, or there can be something else that bonito, I think bonito, is that what it's called? Which is like a little fish flake or something. I think sometimes they put that kind of stuff in there. So always ask. And but miso, if you just buy actual miso, it does not have, and I'm not talking about the powdered stuff that's like really salty. No, I'm talking about actual miso paste. So make sure that you get organic because it's a soy product. We want to make sure we're not getting all the GMO. So and there's different types of miso. So there's the mellow miso, which is like the yellow miso, and then there's the red miso. If you want a miso that will be more versatile, I would go with the lighter, the mellow miso. And you can make so many things with this. So besides adding it to soup, and if you wanted to have that heavy miso flavor, you can add a lot of it. But if you just want it to give it kind of that umami-ness, that flavor, just use a little bit. So you do you. You can use other things in the broth. But I love miso, and I use it to make dressing. I use it to marinate things. You can use it if you make vegan cheese. This is like a secret ingredient. You don't always see this when you go to make vegan cheese. But if you take like cashews and you blend cashews up with a little bit of water, you add some miso to it, and it gives this like extra layer of flavoring in there. So you can put some lemon juice in there. If you want to have some liquid smoke, something like that to give it a little bit more flavor. Anyways, you can go online and look for how to make like a vegan cheese out of cashews. But miso is that secret thing that they don't always put in there. So if you're gonna make like a mac and cheese, that tastes really good in there. All right, let's go back to soup because it's a meal. All right. So this says 400 soups. Well, obviously we can't make all 400 of these because this is not a vegan cookbook, but I could certainly get some ideas. And I personally don't even really use cookbooks like for the actual recipe. I use it as more of like inspiration. And I kind of I like to just sit down and look through a cookbook. That's why I like ones with lots of pictures because it inspires me. And I'll be like, oh, interesting. And I read the ingredients and read how they make stuff. And then I'm like, oh, okay. Okay. Next time I have a eggplant and I've got, some whatever else they might be talking about in there, I'm going to use that technique and try it out. I just kind of put it in my back pocket. Now, if you're somebody that's like, I'm never going to remember that, you can get those little flags and put them on the edges of your books. That's always a great way to be able to just remember, like, oh, yeah, where was that recipe again? Oh, yeah. I tend to, sometimes I just rip off scraps of, I do poor man style. I just take these things and just rip them. Otherwise, I do have the official little taggy things. And then you can write on them and say what it is that you're referring to. Because sometimes you might be like, why did I flag this? I don't even remember, especially if you got as many cookbooks as I do. Oh, okay. That just, I just remembered something by looking at this. I saw an Asian recipe and it reminded me of my bamboo steamers. I don't have them with me. I just thought of this. I'll bring them to another plant-based party. Bamboo steamers are great. And you can find them in, like, if you go to Chinatown in San Francisco, oh my God, I was so glad that we drove down there once because I was able to get bamboo steamers like in every size, like a size that I wouldn't be able to bring back on an airplane very easily. Like it was like this big and it goes in, it's like a giant size one. And bamboo steamers, why do you need this? Because you can layer them in a pot and steam a whole bunch of stuff at once. You could make your own dumplings. Yes, they're so good in the steamer. And probably you can steam vegetables if you're into that. You can steam your face, but I wouldn't put that in a bamboo steamer. But one of the great things for steamers is if you are making seitan. So seitan is wheat meat, so it's a protein for plant-based people. And if you're gluten-free, this probably will not work out for you. But I also make let's just call them cutlets out of beans. And I use other products in there like pea protein. I'll use some what do they call it? Chickpea flour, that sort of thing. So you can make things that are gluten-free as well. And then you can put that in the steamer, steam it up so it kind of solidifies it. Oh, you know what else you could put in there is, so if you can't have gluten, but you can have tofu or soy products, you can take some silken tofu, blend that up, or you can even just kind of mush it with a fork and then mix it with those other ingredients like the pea protein and the you can put in there some beans and blend the beans up, or you can mush them with a potato masher. And then you put all this stuff together with the pea protein and the chickpea flour, and that kind of holds it all together. And if there is any kind of, if you've got barbecue sauce or some kind of sauce that you like maybe a Korean barbecue, or and you make it into a little patty, right? And then I make a blend of flavoring in a bowl, and then I have one of those little brushes and I just brush it on there. Then you could steam it up like that, and then after it steams, then you could fry it just to kind of make it kind of crunchy on the outside. You could batter it, put it in an air fryer. Oh my God, there's so many ideas. Vegans, we have so much we can eat. Oh my God, people have no idea. They think we don't eat anything. What? Oh my God. All right. All right, I've got some other ideas for you. So I'm bringing out one of my fave books. So this one, Vegan Table. This is a really good cookbook. And there is one recipe in particular in here that is worth the price of admission for this well, not for this video. You didn't pay anything to come to this video. I'm talking about the price of admission for the book. So you'll have to buy the book. I don't have permission to give you the recipe word for word here. So this cookbook, when it came out, it was $20. I'm sure you can buy used. This came out a while ago. I'm sure there's lots of used copies floating around Amazon or wherever you go buying books. But this is, I'm gonna probably butcher the name because it's a I think this is a Middle Eastern name. Muhammara, maybe. Okay, roasted red pepper and walnut spread. That I can pronounce. All right. Well, where I had this particular dish was at a Middle Eastern place here in Portland, Oregon, and it was delicious. And my husband and I, and they give you it was like one of those veggie or vegan mesa plates where you only get a tiny bit, and we're like, holy cow, what is this stuff? And then when I got this recipe book, I was like, oh my God, there's a recipe for that in here. This is a crowd pleaser. I've made this for many parties, and it's something that people are like, oh my God, this is amazing. Yes, because it is amazing. And you can make it pretty much with stuff that you probably should have in your pantry already. So if you're like, oh my God, we're going to this party, I don't even know what I'm going to make. Look in your pantry, calm down, because guess what? You probably got all these ingredients. And if you don't, these are things you should have in your cabinets. All right. So it takes a jar of the roasted red peppers. You can get those at Trader Joe's. They don't cost that much. It costs less to make a giant amount of this stuff than the whole mezza platter and everything when we went to the restaurant. I can tell you that. So in this, you'll get so much that you'll have stuff left over, not just for the party, but for yourself. This tastes good on sandwiches. It tastes good. You could put it on potatoes. You can do all kinds of stuff with it. So it doesn't have to be served with pita bread. I think that's what's in the picture here. But you can dip it with crackers and all that kind of stuff. But yes, it's a spread, and you can make it thicker by adding more nuts to it. And it does also it calls for some breadcrumbs. So if you are gluten-free, you could just probably leave those out and just put more nuts inside of it, or maybe some gluten-free flour crackers, maybe you might want to experiment with that. But I think if you had, I'm just thinking about those almond flour cookies Almond flour crackers from Costco, those would probably, if you put them in a blender or something, they probably would blend up in a nice way that you could use it as a substitute for breadcrumbs. I think so. Okay, so this also calls for some walnuts. So you can use raw or toasted. I always do it with raw. Um, garlic cloves. So if you don't have that on hand, just use some garlic powder. Now, garlic cloves. Here's another little thing that I'm going to tell you about. Garlic cloves. I don't like having to peel those things. It's just a pain in the butt. And so you can buy them already peeled. What I do is I go to the Asian market and they've got them pre-peeled in these bags for $1 a piece. And I just buy like a few of those bags. It's worth it to me because you get a lot of them and it's way cheaper than buying like the ones that are the brand ones that you get in the supermarket. So check your local Asian market, see if they do this where they sell the little bags of peeled ones and they're freshly peeled. I take those, I pop them in the oven, I roast them, they smell great, and then I put them in the freezer. So I always have roasted garlic in my freezer. So you could use the roasted garlic from the freezer in here. And my husband uses those to make hummus all the time. So again, these are things that you have on hand, just have those things on hand. All right. Or at least have some garlic powder. Oh my God. If you don't have that, your kitchen needs an upgrade. All right. Then it says fresh lemon juice, salt. Okay. Well, salt, everybody's got that, right? You can use some sea salt or some regular salt. Fresh lemon juice. Now, okay. So wait a minute. I should back up and say, if you were a salt-free person, maybe you don't have salt in your house. Maybe you can use some of that salt-free stuff. I can't promise it's going to taste good, but yeah, maybe. Okay. Then there's the salt. Okay, lemon juice. This fresh lemon juice. All right. Not everybody's got lemons sitting around their house. Okay. What I do is I always have a container of the lemon juice. You can get like a 2-pack from Costco, the giant size. If you make hummus, you probably want to have these on hand anyways. So, I get like the smaller ones for lime. You can get the smaller ones for lemon too, but at least have that in your house, like just in case you're going to make something that requires lemon. Because a lot of times, like if you're making vegan cheese, you'll want to put a little bit of lemon juice in there. Sometimes if you're making a soup, you want to put a little lemon juice in there. That's what I did for my soup, the cauliflower soup I was talking about. It needed some acid, and so I put the lemon juice in there. Have it on hand. You're going to make guacamole and you don't have a lime, sometimes you gotta use a lemon. Just saying. Although that would not be my first pick. Okay. So, then it says agave nectar. Agave. Okay. Agave comes from a cactus. That's what they make tequila out of. And agave is a sweetener. So instead of using honey, because honeys come from bees, and vegans we don't want to encroach on the bees, so we don't use honey. So, but there is honey made out of things like carrot honey. Bees aren't making that. Humans are making that. So there are other ways of making some kind of honey, quote unquote, but it's not bee honey. You can use something like that. I have like a rice sweetener that it's like I think it's from an Asian market, but it's almost like agave, but it's made from rice instead of the agave plant. So just use some kind of sweetener. Now, agave does have like a higher something spike and something if you can't have sweets or whatever. I don't know the health. Oh God, what is it called? Anyways, I'll figure it out and put it in the show notes. But glycemic. Higher glycemic, I think that's what it's called. Anyways, if you can't have it, then just leave it out. Maybe you could put some other kind of sugar substitute, like monk fruit, maybe. Don't use aspartame. No. That is bad for you and causes cancer. So please do not use aspartame, which is also like sweet and low, that kind of crap. I am not a fan of stevia. I don't like the taste of stevia. I would not put that in my food. Some people like it. So if you're bringing this to a party, you better hope that those people like stevia if you're putting that in there. So if I had to do a replacement for agave and I was in a pinch and I didn't have my rice stuff, I would probably use maple syrup and a tiny amount. I think that would be okay in this because maple syrup has that rich flavor that agave has, but it you don't want to overpower the maple part of it, but it would give it that sweetener rather than using sugar. Okay. All right. So we got that going on. Then we got cumin, ground cumin. Come on, you need to have that in the house. If you don't have that in the house, what's going on there? So cumin, it's a great spice. It's, and if you didn't have the cumin in the house, is it cumin or cumin? Cumin? I say cumin. You say cumin. I say cumin. Okay. If you've got that, if you don't have that in the house, this is 1 teaspoon. It's probably okay if you lift it out. That's one ingredient that if you had to leave it out, it'd be okay, but it gives it more when it has it in it. So the depth of flavor. So you're gonna miss a little bit of that depth of flavor when you take an ingredient out like that. And then it says red pepper flakes. And I think that's kind of an optional. It says more to taste. So if you're not a spice person, just leave them out. If you like it spicy and your guests are going to like it spicy, then add more. But, always do some taste tests. Don't be like, woo. Have you ever had it where like you go to add something and the lid thing falls off, like the little shaker lid thing, and all of a sudden now you've got a whole bunch of stuff in your whatever you're making? That has happened to me with the red pepper flakes. Oh my God, that is not a good situation. Or when it happens with like black pepper. It happened to me the other day with some thyme. I was making some gravy and it was thymy. Yeah, I was just kind of went with it. I just added some water and some extra stuff, and I was like, "It's gonna be extra time on this gravy," and it took extra time to make the gravy, and it had extra time. Tyme. Time. Oh, is it T? Is it THYME? I think so. Anyways, all right. So what are you gonna do with this thing? You're going to take all these ingredients and you're going to put them in a blender or put it in a food processor. I like food processors better than blenders. Now, Vitamix is great, but you know what I don't like about that is that it's narrow, like it's a narrower vessel than a food processor. So food processor, you can kind of scrape around. You can take the blade out and you can scrape around and get all the goodness. Where in a Vitamix, I'm sorry, Vitamix, but you didn't make the bottom detachable. Like, what is up with that? So you kind of have to kind of scrape down, dig down, and get around the blade, and it's all narrow down there, and it's really hard to get the stuff until you add water, and then you can finally clean it. Not a fan of that. I'm sorry. Vitamixes are good for other things, like making smoothies and stuff. But here's the thing. Instant Pot made their own version that is kind of squattier. My husband got this for me because it actually, you can put warm things in there and warm it up kind of thing. I thought, oh, blended soups. Didn't work. Everything got caught. It didn't cook right. And it wasn't a good product. But I love my Instant Pot, so I hate to put down the company. But the blender mix thing did not work well. And I can't remember if the bottom was detachable or not. So food processor, get yourself one. It's well worth it. And if you feel like, oh, I'm not going to make things in big batches, just get a small one. They're way cheaper. But I use mine all the time and it's totally, totally worth it. And if you buy a real expensive one, chances are if it does break, or like there's a piece that breaks or something, that company may replace the piece for you. So keep the warranty and all that kind of stuff. So like if it's KitchenAid or one of those, they usually replace the things for free. So I've gone through some, you can go through this stuff if you're using it a lot. You kind of you move it, jam it, and a piece of plastic breaks off or whatever. So it does happen. You got to be more delicate with your kitchen appliances, I guess. All right. So you put all this stuff, you blend it, and then you can drizzle some olive oil on top, which says right here. And it says serve with pita triangles, fresh bread, crackers, chips, carrots, mushrooms, cucumbers, or other raw veggies. Make it the day before serving to allow the flavors to mingle. Yes, we want them to mingle. A lot of these types of foods with those types of flavorings in them, like that, like Indian food, Middle Eastern food, the the flavors have to mingle. They like to mingle. So give them some time to mingle. If you have to make it in a hurry just because you're in a pinch and you're like, oh my God, I got to get to this party, it'll taste okay. But guess what? Your leftovers are going to taste even better the next day because it had time to mingle. So if you got to mingle and you don't have time to let them mingle, then just bring it over the way it is. It'll still taste really good, but it will taste better tomorrow or the next day, whatever. The other thing it said, mushrooms. I am a huge mushroom fan. I do not like raw mushrooms, and some mushrooms are, you should never eat them raw anyways. I am not an expert in mushroomology. Probably that's not what it's called. It's what are those things called? They're like Mr. something or other. Anyways, Mycopian something. See, this is why I need other people at my party because then they know how to pronounce these things. I'm not really sure. Anyways, Cyboblyben. I don't know. Maybe that's the other kind of mushroom. I don't know. Anyways, raw. I don't know. I think that there can be something wrong with the mushroom if you eat it raw. That you could have some health consequences or something. It's kind of like the what are they called? See, I don't even know what they clams. No, not clams. What's oysters? People eat those raw, right? Yeah. Oh, okay. The one time I ate that back before I was vegan, I got so sick. And those guys are like, is it clams or the oysters that are like the garbage cleaners of the sea? Why would you want to eat that? Like that is just disgusting. And then they don't even cook it, and you're eating that, and it's got literal garbage in there. Oh, I don't think so. Okay. All right, what else do I got here? I just grabbed a few things before I started this, and I thought, oh, okay, let's just look at the stuff on my I don't know. I just grabbed things. I don't even know what I'm talking about here. Because I got nobody to talk to but you. All right. So vegan pie. Who doesn't like pie? Okay, do we have cake lovers out there or pie lovers? What do we got? Cake or pie? I like pie. If I was having a birthday, which I'm not today, but if I was, I'd be like, get me a pie. I'd much rather have a pie than a cake. I don't know. Maybe it's because pies can have fruit in them. Cakes usually don't, unless it's like a pineapple upside down cake, which is good. And carrot cake, which has carrots in it, or zucchini bread, or banana bread. See, I like all those. Those are good. Those aren't actual cakes, though. I'm not a big cake eater. Yeah. A cupcake might be okay if it's super moist, but I'm a pie person. I like pie. All right. Maybe it's the math. I don't know. This is different spelling, anyways. All right, pie. Okay. So as a kid, I love to eat raw dough. Now I still love to eat raw dough, but I don't have my mom passed away, but my mom used to make her pie dough. She didn't go to the store and buy pie dough that was already made. She would make her own pie dough. And she'd make it and then roll it up, and then she'd have it on the counter. And as a kid, I would sneak in there and take a little bit and like kind of patch up the little ball of dough, and because I knew I wasn't supposed to be eating that raw dough. And I think raw dough is pretty bad for you anyways, unless you make it like a gluten-free type dough that doesn't have eggs or whatever it is in there, or maybe it's flour or something. Yeah, I think it's flour too. Anyways, whatever it was in the dough that you're not supposed to have, but I would eat it anyways as a kid. And then my mom would go to roll out the pie dough, and she'd be like, why isn't there enough to cover the top of the pie? Not sure, Mom. I don't know. Anyways, my friend and I, we used to take the brownie mix, like a Duncan Hines brownie mix or whatever. And again, that probably had raw eggs in it. Now I'm thinking about it. Although in the 70s, raw eggs was like a thing. People ate raw eggs. It was like, I'm like Rocky. And everybody put raw eggs in like in health food drinks. I'm using air quotes, okay? But yeah, that was a like a thing. They did that in the movie Cabaret. That was like her cure for a hangover or something, raw eggs. I don't know, it had its moment in the 70s. Do not recommend that, besides it not being vegan, but it's also, I think you'll get salmonella poisoning. But we used to eat the brownie mix, the raw brownie mix, and then we would just cook whatever was left afterwards. But we were the kids in the 70s, so we lived through all kinds of things, including salmonella. All right, vegan pie. This cookbook has all sorts of really delicious things in here. I'm not really a fan of making pie crust. I do not like to roll out pie crust, so I will spend a little extra money and buy a pie crust that's already been made. I usually get the gluten-free ones. I'm not gluten-free, but that way, if I make a pie and someone is gluten-free, I'm already covered with the crust is gluten-free. Done. Bam. And then I just have to make sure that what I put into the pie is also gluten-free. Now, pie crust can be used to make quiche. Now you think, quiche, that sounds like that doesn't sound vegan. Isn't that made with eggs? Au contraire, mon frere. You can make quiche with tofu, and you can also use nuts like cashews to blend it up to make the base for it, and it holds together, gives it an eggy quality. You can use the cornstarch, you can use chickpea flour, turmeric. There's a whole bunch of things that you can do with it, and it just comes out divine, absolutely divine. So you can do that in a pie crust. You can make a quiche, and then you can make pies. So I buy and then if I'm going to buy a wheat crust, I always make sure that it's a organic wheat crust because I don't want the GMOs. And I think, is it Armor Hill? No, that doesn't sound right. Hammer Hill? Arrow Hill, maybe? Arrow Hill. I think they're the ones that make it. But they're really hard to find most of the time, except for like around the holiday seasons. And then I just got to buy up some and have them in my freezer. All right, so pies. Then you can also get the graham cracker crust pies, pie shells. And I think Arrow Farms, that's what it's called. I think they make those as well, but not all year round either, or at least not at my local grocery store. So we got pumpkin pie. I have my own recipe for that, and I use silken tofu in mine. You will be surprised how many things you can do with tofu. Pumpkin cheesecake. Oh my God, look at that. And this one has a vanilla cookie crust variation. So you can make it with vanilla cookies. Now, vanilla cookies, so those are like Nillas. Those are not vegan unless they've changed their ingredients lately. So you'll have to find the vegan version, which I believe you can get at places like Whole Foods. They have a vegan version. It's a little bit more expensive, but it might be cheaper to make that yourself than buy the crust. But you know what? It may actually be just cheaper just to buy the crust already done that way that is vegan. So you find that usually in the freezer section at a place like Whole Foods. Okay, the recipe I wanted to show you is this one. It's called coconut cream pie. Oh my God. This one is a crowd pleaser. Woo, let me tell you. Now, this one does call for a cookie crust. I've used a graham cracker crust that was vegan. And for those that were gluten-free, not a problem, because the amount of stuff that it makes, the center part, the goodness, the coconut goodness is too much to actually put into a pie. So you have this other stuff left over. It's kind of like like the best coconut pudding you've ever had in your whole life. And you can put it in some ramekins, and put them like that and bake it when you're baking the pie. And then that way, for your gluten-free people, they've got their own individual ones. It hasn't touched anything else. So all the contents in the pie are gluten-free. So it's just, you may have a gluten-free, you might have a gluten crust. I'm just, or, I think this would be fine in a gluten-free crust, just a regular pie crust type situation, instead of the cookie-ish, graham cracker-ish kind of crust. I think it's fine. I mean, when you think about, okay, let's think about this. A coconut cream pie. So you go to a diner, you get a coconut cream pie. I think those are normally served with just regular pie crust, right? You tell me. It's been a long time since I've been to a diner and been able to pick out a pie in one of those turning things. Oh my God, that used to be a thing. Like, I don't know if there's very many places that have those spinning pies anymore. That sounds like something out of what's that guy's name? Oh my God. See, my brain is like, I'm getting old. What's that guy? Twin Peaks guy. I'm thinking it's like a Twin Peaks kind of thing. All right. It'll come to me. Pie. Okay, so David Lynch. Oh my God. My brain is just like, okay, David Lynch. I got coconut on the brain. That's the problem. I'm not thinking David Lynch. I'm thinking about coconut pies. All right. So this is actually not very difficult to make, and it is amazing. Oh my God. Let me tell you that it does call for unroasted cashews. So you want the raw cashews. Now, I buy my raw cashews organic from Costco, and you can get a giant thing of it. They used to put them in a giant thing of plastic. Thank goodness they do not do that anymore. Now they put it in a bag. Thank you, Costco. Because it was really super annoying to have this big chunk of plastic. And then not only was it like a big chunk of plastic and it's like terrible for the environment, but also go in your refrigerator and it was just took up so much room, All right. So we got that. And it says, let it soak for a while. I want to let your cashews soak for a little bit. If you do not have time, this is 2 to 8 hours until they're soft. If you don't have time, guess what you do? You boil some water and then you pour that on your cashews. And that just, you've just like time saver, major time saver. So do you have one of those kettles that's just like you put water in it and you plug it in and it boils water? That's what I would do. Just have one of those ready and then just put those in a glass, like measuring cup or something. So that way you got them all measured out, and then just put the hot water right in there. Boom. There you go. All right. Makes it easy. All right. Then it says 1 can of coconut milk at room temperature. The higher the fat content on this coconut milk, because we're talking about kind of the can, the higher the fat content, the better this pie is going to taste. I am sorry, but it's just better with the fat. So you know how you can get like the low fat coconut in the can? Okay, don't make your guests suffer. Give them a good tasting pie, because you know what, it's going to make the pie a little bit on the runnier side. You don't want a runny coconut pie. So get the one with the fuller fat. There's certain brands that I like that have a lot more of the chunky fat. Oh my God. I've found some really good organic ones that have a really nice consistency of the coconut. Now, I'm not talking about the coconut milk that you get by the soy milk. That's not going to work. Okay. So just put that idea out of your head. That will not work. Okay. So, then it calls for some unsweetened almond milk or non-dairy milk of your choice. I would probably go with, now see here, you could sub with the coconut milk that you get by the soy milk. This would work here. Or some oat milk. I'm not an almond milk fan when it comes to baking and cooking. Almond milk is okay in cereal. I don't like it. It curdles and does weird things. I don't like it for this kind of stuff. But you've got the cashew milk. You could use cashew milk. That would be good. You already got the cashews going. Coconut milk, soy milk. I think oat milk could be fine. She says almond milk. Maybe she's a fan. I don't know if that's what you got in the house. Now, if it's a vanilla flavored one that you have, I think in this situation it's okay, because a little vanilla it's gonna be fine, because we're gonna put some vanilla extract in this anyways. So I oftentimes, Costco for some reason has been like, now they finally got the regular soy milk back, but for a while there it was just vanilla soy milk. So I was having to buy the vanilla soy milk and then oat milk. That was so if something didn't call for something that had vanilla flavor, I mean, a lot of things you could put vanilla flavor in, but some stuff you don't want. Okay. So I digress. A teaspoon of agar powder. Okay, you might be like, what the heck is that? Okay, agar powder is agar. It's made from seaweed, and it makes things more, let's just say, gelatinous. So if you were to make a substitute for Jello, I'm putting air quotes around Jello, you could use agar, which thickens it up. So a lot of times, like in Asian cooking, like if you go to there's a local place here that makes Asian desserts and tofu and all that kind of stuff, and they don't use gelatin in their desserts. I'm sure they're using agar, and it looks like almost like a jello-y kind of substance, but it's not. It's not made with hooves. There's no hooves in this pie. All right. So if you don't have the agar powder, don't freak out. You can use tapioca flour instead. You could use the cornstarch that I was talking about earlier, but make sure it is non-GMO cornstarch. And you could probably use some other kind of like emulsifier thickener type thing, like ultra gel. I think that's what it's called. Ultra clear gel. It's actually made from corn as well, but it's non-GMO. Ultra clear gel. And what's cool about the ultra clear gel is that you don't have to heat it up for something to thicken. You just use the ultra clear gel and then you whip it up. And so you can use that in dressing. So if you've got runny dressing, use the ultra clear gel. I buy that from Amazon. I have a giant bag of it always on hand, just in case, for things that seem a little runny. And then, oh my God, you can just save the day with that. Okay. All right. So then some sugar. I always get the organic cane sugar I get it from Costco. So it's just in a giant bag and it lasts me a long time. Pure vanilla extract. You want to make sure that you're using real vanilla extract. You don't want to like the fake stuff. That's like a bunch of chemicals. No. Then we get coconut extract or additional vanilla extract. To me, you can't have enough vanilla extract. I love the flavor of vanilla. So, if you had some vanilla beans on here, ooh, wouldn't that be good? Okay. I'm too cheap for that. I don't ever buy vanilla beans. And then shredded coconut. So for this, you want was it Bob's Red Mill? He makes a really good shredded coconut because it's not sugared. It doesn't have sugar on it. There's another company, it's like Coconuts or something like that. Anyways, there's plenty of shredded coconut out there that is just like the real raw shredded coconut. It's organic. It's not with all the sugary stuff on it. So please just buy this kind and use that instead. This is really good in chia seed pudding. You can use it on your cereal. You can do all kinds of things with it. You can get cookies with it. It's well worth it. I always have it on hand. You can probably use the finely shredded, or you can maybe use the chunkier shredded ones. I think I've done both. Okay, then let's see, vanilla, and then that's it. You whip it all up. So this one does not have tofu in it. This has the cashews, and then it has the coconut milk. So between the whole can of coconuts and then the cashews and all that, it's just the ingredients. It'll spill over. And if you try to be like me, like, I'm just going to get it all in that pie crust, it will cook over the sides. So you don't want that. But regardless, it could bubble up. So put something underneath this pie because it could, especially if you're baking other things in your oven, it could explode over, or it could go onto the bottom of your oven, and then you got to clean that thing. Let's avoid that. So always put something underneath it. But again, think about your gluten-free people. Just make a little side dish, little ramekin things, and just bake them in there. And you could even put a little bit of cinnamon on top of those or something, just to jazz them up a little bit. You could creme brulee the top or something. I don't know. I don't have a creme brulee gun or anything, so I'm not really sure how to do that, but that probably would be good on there, I think, if you had those talents. And then, okay, so you you basically like you blend it, you scrape it down the sides. You can use a food processor or a blender, and then you boil the mixture, and then let it bubble. So what happens is it's starting to thicken up, and then some coconut oil goes in there, and I probably wouldn't put that much coconut oil in there, just because if you're using the full fat coconut, you've already got enough fat in there. If you're using the thinner stuff, you see, I don't think you need all this coconut oil. I think that might be a little overboard. And then put in the coconut and all that stuff, and then you put it into the pie crust, and then you refrigerate it. Oh, wait a minute. Holy cow, wait a minute. Oh, you're not putting this one in the oven. Hold on a second. I just screwed all that up. Transfer the mixture to the prepared pie crust. Okay, so you are already going to cook that pie crust and then refrigerate until it sets for 3 to 5 hours. The filling is very thin at first, but that is how it's supposed to be. Don't worry, it will thicken as it sets. Okay, so I must be thinking of a different pie than I made that bubbled over the sides. So you know what? While these are chilling, I think I did cook the other ones, so maybe I put them in the. Now I'm forgetting how I made this. I could have sworn that I baked this in the oven. Those little ramekins things. You can do a substitute of this. You can do a coconut lime cream pie. Sounds like a key lime pie. All right. So you know what? Maybe I made a version of this where I actually baked it. I have a feeling that's what I did. I'm pretty sure that's what I did. I didn't cook it on the stove. I just like put it all in the oven. And see, this is what happens when you don't follow recipes. You just like do it yourself. I think that's what I did. I'm pretty sure. I think I just made it in the oven. So maybe you can do either. I don't know. But you know what? When you have guests coming over, sometimes you don't want to experiment like that because it could become a disaster. And then you're like, oh my God, now what am I going to do for dessert? All right. So I think that I have gone long enough and talked to you guys enough for today and given you enough lessons on how to eat more vegan. So please join me in the future. We're going to be doing 2 of these a month, and I would love to have you as my guest. You can come on camera and join the party and give some of your tips and tricks around the kitchen and let us know what you like, what vegan cookbooks that you like to use, or maybe like just random cookbooks that you have that you're like, I can veganize this, and tell us how you veganized it. Because I swear to you that I can veganize just about anything. That if it's some kind of meal that you're like, oh my God, I remember my mom used to make this and I miss it and it reminds me of home. But now that I don't eat meat, I can't have it anymore. No, 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 no. I bet you I can come up with a new version for you. So if there is something that you've got a hankering for and you're like, how in the world would I make this vegan? I bet you I can help you with that. The only thing I've not been able to figure out is cottage cheese, but it hasn't really come up in a recipe yet. So I don't need to really worry about that. But everything else, I think I can handle. So please join me again. And if you would like to be on this show, you can send me a DM on Instagram at Savvy Frugal Vegan. So go to Instagram, slide into my DM at Savvy Frugal Vegan. Say, hey, I would like to be on your show and talk about food and all that kind of jazz. I would love to have you because it's a party is more fun with more people, isn't it? I think so too. All right. But you've been here, you've joined the party. And so it's been you and me. And that's great. Yeah. You and me is a party. You only need 2 people for a party. Actually, well, I guess you only need 1 person for a party. And you just happen to drop in. So that's great. Awesome. All right. This has been Heather Zeitzwolfe with It's a Plant-Based Party. Yeah. How do I stop this thing?